Welcome back, everyone. Today we're exploring what happens after the hiring decision is made, that is, onboarding, training, and developing employees. This is where the real work begins. It involves the fact that you have basically found the right people for the right job, but now you need to help them succeed. Onboarding sets the tone for their entire experience. Training builds their capabilities, and development shapes their long term potential. Think of this as the investment phase in HR. You've spent time and money finding the talent, now you need to develop that talent to its full potential. So let's begin. By the end of this module, you should be able to explain the value of onboarding, why those first days and weeks matter so much. Second, explain how to design, conduct, and evaluate employee training. That is the systematic approach to building skills. Thirdly, you will be able to explain how to develop employees, the longer term process of career growth. So these three areas, they represent a continuum. They start when a new employee walks through the door and continue throughout their entire career. So let's move on to the benefits of onboarding. First, we are going to identify the benefits of onboarding, which is what the organization gains. Second, we're going to evaluate the various methods of onboarding, which is how to do it effectively. Onboarding is often confused with orientation. Orientation is typically a one-day event focused on paperwork and basic information. Onboarding is a longer process, sometimes even it can stretch for a few months, because it helps employees become fully integrated to the organization and make their efforts productive. So let's see why this matters. When onboarding is done well, the benefits are substantial. Higher levels of employee job satisfaction. People who feel welcomed and prepared are happier in their roles. They understand what's expected and feel confident they can succeed. Lower turnover. Employees who experience effective onboarding are less likely to leave. The first few months are when many employees decide whether to stay or go. Then we have better employee performance. Well onboarded employees become productive faster because they understand processes, expectations, and how to get things done. Then you have lowered employee stress. Starting a new job is very stressful. Good onboarding reduces that anxiety by providing clarity and support. So, with all this taken into consideration, employees make better decisions. When people understand company policies, practices, and culture, they make decisions that align with the organization's goals. It is a strategic investment with measurable returns. So here are the methods of onboarding. These are the most effective methods, being the formal methods. It is structured and intentional. It includes training sessions and roundtable discussions, shadowing programs. This is where new employees observe experienced workers, ethics and company culture training. It teaches the employee the culture of the organization as well as ethical practices to better help them integrate into the organization's culture. Mentoring programs that pair new employees with experienced guides, and follow-up meetings to check progress. Formal methods are most effective in establishing higher productivity and retention. When organizations invest in structured onboarding, employees feel valued and they feel prepared. So here are some informal methods. This is a hands-off approach. New employees are left to figure things out on their own. This might include minimal guidance, assumption that employees will pick it up naturally, and there's very little structured training or support. We need to avoid this at all costs because it is less effective and inconsistent. Some employees might succeed through luck or initiative while others struggle. It creates unnecessary stress and delays productivity. The research is clear. Formal, structured onboarding produces better results. Here is a practice question that you can do in your free time. And here's another one. We're going to move on to training employees. Now, this is from welcoming employees to building their capabilities through training. We have 4 learning objectives. We're going to discuss how to identify training gaps, which is understanding what needs to be taught. We're going to go over the ADDIE model. This is the systematic approach to creating training. And third, we're going to describe employee training methods, which is how training is delivered. And lastly, the evaluation of training effectiveness involves measuring the results of given efforts. Training is a systematic process. It requires careful planning and evaluation. So, identifying training gaps. Training needs assessment, and this helps identify where training is needed. So here's the 6-step approach. Establish clear expectations. This is what should employees know and be able to do. Without clear standards, you can't identify gaps. Measure performance. How are employees actually performing and where are they falling short? Solicit input on training needs. You need to ask employees and managers what training would help. They often know their own gaps. Support career development. Training should connect to career paths. People are more motivated to learn when they see a future. Number 5, conduct an organizational resource analysis. Do you have the resources, time, money, expertise to provide given training? And lastly, establish a coaching and mentoring program. Formal and informal guidance helps reinforce training and addresses the individual needs of each employee. Training gaps usually occur when there's a variance between desired and actual behavior or performance. Identifying these gaps is the first step to addressing them. So now we move on to the ADDIE model, which is one of the highlights of today's session. It is the most widely used framework for instructional design. It's a systematic approach that ensures training is effective. So, analysis. Identify the performance gap. What problems are you trying to solve and what knowledge or skills are missing? Then you need to identify the learning objectives. Design. What should participants know or be able to do after training? Followed by development. Develop a performance solution. Create the training materials, activities, and assessments. Then we have implementation. Deliver the performance solution. Actually run the training. And then finally, we have evaluation. You evaluate the results relative to the performance objectives and you ask yourself the most important question: did the training work? This model is very iterative. You might go back and revise based on what you learn at each stage, and it's not a one-way process. So next we move on to employee training methods. There's no one size fits all. I'm sure you've gathered that thus far in our lecture. Different situations call for different approaches. So the factors you need to consider: employees have different learning styles. Some learn by doing, some by watching, and others by reading. The role of artificial intelligence, being AI, can personalize training and provide feedback, but as we've discussed in our previous sessions, AI always needs human oversight. The content itself matters. Technical skills might require hands-on practice, while soft skills might need discussion and role-playing. So here are some examples of employee training methods. The first one, job shadowing. This involves watching experienced employees work. Mentoring. This is guidance from experienced colleagues. Then we have role play. This involves practicing scenarios in a safe environment, followed by simulation, which is realistic practice without real-world consequences, followed by team training, which involves building team skills together, and lastly, internship, learning through practical experience. The key is to match the method to the content and to the learner's needs. It is very situation based. So now we move on to evaluating the training effectiveness. The Kirkpatrick model is the most common framework for evaluating training effectiveness. It has 4 levels: reaction, learning, behavior, results. So, reaction. Did participants enjoy the training? This is the least important level, but often the most measured. Level 2, you're going to ask, did participants gain knowledge or skills? Did they learn what you intended? Then we have level 3. Are participants applying what they learned on the job? Training only matters if behavior changes and given training is implemented into work. And then lastly, we have results. Did the training achieve business outcomes? Did it improve productivity, reduce errors, and improve the quality of work or products or services being rendered? So here's a very important insight that I want you to note. Although it's usually taught levels 1 to 4, it's actually most effective if implemented in a reverse order. Start with the desired results, then work backward to design training that achieves those results. Reverse order allows companies to design programs specifically to meet desired outcomes. So, now we're going to move on. These are practice questions you can do in your free time. We're going to move on to developing employees. We have 3 learning objectives. First, we're going to differentiate between employee training and employee development, understand the differences between them. Second, we're going to evaluate various employee development methods, how development is delivered. And then lastly, we're going to discuss the various approaches to career management, which is how individuals and organizations approach career growth. Development is about the long game, building capabilities that serve employees throughout their careers. So, let's look at employee training versus development. Training is about learning experience. You must be focused on the current job needs. Hard skills. These are technical, specific skills, and they are very measurable. And then teaching new skills. These are all related to increasing the effectiveness and the quality of job completion. So, training needs to have a specific immediate purpose. Its objective is to enhance knowledge, skills, and abilities relative to the job position. Then we move on to development. Cultivation of core skills occurs over a long period of time. It's ongoing. Then we have soft skills. This involves critical thinking, communication, and leadership. It hones a person's critical thinking, communication, and leadership skills. So all of this occurs over the entire career. That's why you would notice it takes a long time for people to actually progress from a trainee all the way until a manager. So ultimately, I want you to think of training as learning to drive a specific car. Development is becoming a better driver overall. Then we have employee development methods. Development can happen through a number of ways. Case studies involve analyzing real or hypothetical business situations to develop critical thinking. We discussed role playing earlier. It involves practicing interpersonal skills in simulated scenarios. Then we have committee or special project assignments, taking on challenging projects to stretch capabilities. And then we have classes, which is formal education on topics like leadership, communication, and business strategy. Then we have conferences, which involve learning from experts and peers in professional settings. And then we lastly have seminars and webinars, which are focused learning sessions on specific topics similar to what we are doing today. So development is less structured than training. It's more about creating opportunities for growth rather than just delivering specific content. So here's a discussion. I want you to think about this in your free time. Which is more important, whether they are separate or connected, and how would a development plan differ from a training plan? And is there a life cycle? So just give that some thought when you're revising today's lesson. Let's move on to career management. And here is a fundamental truth about this. You are ultimately responsible for your own career. The key principles: you need to take a creative, not reactive approach to uncertainty. This means don't just react to what happens, be intentional about where you want to go. That's why it's very important for you to know your mission and your goal. Picture your career as a painting, not a boxy ladder. Career paths aren't straight lines. They move sideways, diagonally, and sometimes even backward. You need to embrace that form of complexity. Then you need to focus on learning. Every experience is an opportunity to learn. The most successful people are always learning. Then you need to continually add to your portfolio of transferable skills and experiences. Skills that can move with you are communication, leadership, and problem solving. These skills are invaluable and you will use them for the rest of your life. And lastly, utilize those around you. Seek feedback to improve both your hard and soft skills. Mentors, managers, and colleagues can often provide valuable insights and feedback. Career management is an active, ongoing process. It just doesn't happen to you. You need to make it happen. Then we have a few more practice questions that you can do in your free time. And I'm just going to give you a quick review of today's work. Formal onboarding. It is the structured process and leads to higher productivity, satisfaction, and retention. Informal onboarding is inconsistent and less effective. Training gaps occur when there's a variance between desired and actual performance. Identifying these gaps is the first step to effective training. The ADDIE model. It provides a systematic approach to training, analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. Then we have training methods. They must match learning styles and content. No one size fits all. Then we have the Kirkpatrick's model that evaluates training at the 4 levels that you need to work backward on. And then training focuses on hard skills needed for immediate job performance, while development focuses on soft skills for long-term capabilities. Career management is ultimately the individual's responsibility. These concepts are essential for building a skilled, engaged, and capable workforce. So, that concludes our Module 7. Let me summarize the key takeaways. Onboarding is a strategic process, not a paperwork exercise. Formal, structured onboarding produces better outcomes than informal approaches. Training should be systematic and evidence-based. The ADDIE model and Kirkpatrick evaluation provide frameworks for doing it right. Training and development are different but complementary. One being training builds job-specific skills, while development builds broader capabilities. And fourth, career management is ultimately the employee's responsibility. Organizations can support career development, but individuals must take ownership. If there's any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I look forward to responding to them. And thank you for your attention and participation. I'll see you in the next lesson.